We'll have some time for questions and answers, so I'm not going to go all the way to the end. But I'm sure you have a lot of technical questions that you might be asking, but I hope that those overarching, the framework that Islamic legal scholars fall into, this foundation gives you some of those frameworks. Then you have other, legal rules and regulations and so forth. So it's not really a simple, is this Sharia law or not Sharia law? It's a much more complex process. So Islamic law is a process of understanding, of interpreting, of looking at the text, the Quran being the supreme or the number one, but even in the Quran you have verses that can be interpreted in multiple ways. Verses that have a context attached to it. An example that I've shared, I think, with my friend Asad. The rule and regulation on divorce that is asked for by the woman, by the wife. Traditionally we hear, Muslims can only the man can divorce, and the woman has no right, and so forth. And that's really not true. You have the story of this woman that left her husband at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and she was running away from him in the house of God in Kaaba in Mecca, and he was running behind her and telling her, "Please, I love you. I want to come back to you. I don't, and so forth." And the Prophet was watching and smiling, and he went to her. And he said, this guy is madly in love with you. Why can't you just, reconciliate? And she said, I can't. And she said this phrase, that I hate to be a disbeliever in what I believe in. I hate to believe in something, which is Islam. I hate to believe in good treatment to others and not be able to practice it. I can't be a good wife to him. I just hate him. She used, there's several narrations. One of them is bluntly, she's told the Prophet, I hate his guts, in Arabic. And she used that term, and the Prophet was okay. So he looked at him and he said, you know what, you don't have a chance to go with her. So, she just doesn't want you, and she has a right to maintain or not maintain. I tried to reconciliate, I tried to talk her out of it, but that didn't happen. So, when the husband and wife goes into the marriage, the husband gives a dowry. Again, the dowry is not a really good translation. A mahar, it's a gift to honor the wife. And basically, if the divorce is asked without any reason, meaning she told the Prophet, he's a very good husband. She told him he's one of the best, he's done everything, he didn't hit me, he didn't do anything to me, but I just don't like him. And so, if there's no actual reason behind it, she still has a right to it, but then that dowry or that mahar has to be given back. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, asked her, can you return the garden that he gave you, or that piece of land? And she said, I'll give him, and I'll give him more. I just want to get rid of him. And he looked at him and he said, just take it and let it go. This story is used as a context for a legal question that comes up. In many Muslim countries today, if a woman wants to divorce the husband, she has to go through courts that are probably as long, California is 6 months. I think now there's only one country that enacted this new law, which is Egypt, that expedited the marriage that's asked for by the wife. It used to be years and years in the past, and that's not within Islamic law. But there's this interpretation that's based in it's based on a patriotic society within a certain era of Islamic history that is not applicable anymore. And people say, well, the example is, the question that is in my research paper was, does khula, and this is called the divorce asked for by the wife, is called khula, that's the technical term. Does it require a court order? Does it require the husband's consent? Does that question even make sense? Well, so if it does require the husband's consent, then what's the point of it? Then she has no right to divorce in that sense. So a lot of scholars went with this, unfortunately, due to many reasons. Perhaps that was not really practiced because there's also, there's rulings that are now, the Ottoman Empire kept very good records of divorce and marriage courts. So the practiced law was different than what's in the books. The practiced law was that the judge forced the husband to divorce. If she wants a divorce, then the court will pronounce a divorce with a procedure. There's a procedure that they need to go through and so forth. But a quick and speedy procedure that's just and fair, maintains the privacy of the family, maintains the love and the respect for other people. So there's this encouragement that even if you go out of the divorce, you go out bil ma'ruf, you go out with goodness. So there's always this emphasis on strong family ties that go beyond marriage, even after a divorce is concluded. So with these overarching principles, and then added to the first point that I made, with the connection between the heart, the mind, and the actions that we do, the spirit, the intellect, and the actions and practices that result out of that interaction between the heart and the mind, comes these objectives of Islamic law. And so scholars took so many paths and so many ways of interpreting Islamic law. To reduce Islamic law to certain practices, to certain countries, to certain states, does not really give due credit for the intellectual history that has been compiled and has been accumulated throughout the years. Does the current form of Islamic laws with an S, is it perfectly fit with modern day society? I have to say, probably not. Is it all of it? No. The core essence of it is. The core values are eternal. The values of mercy, the values of justice, fairness in treatment, whether personal treatment or commercial treatment, political treatment, economic treatment, all forms of treating between persons, between individuals, between states, the overarching principles are the same. What happened is that you have the transfer from the Ottoman Empire to the nation-state system. The nation-state system, and now we have the globalization, really impacts the way religious scholars, Islamic scholars specifically, but many others too, interpret the law. Because the law is supposed to serve people's needs, not to make people's needs difficult. The purpose of the law is to make a path for you to be free, to have a direct connection with God, to have a clear way of life, and that's where the word way of life comes in terms of Islam as a way of life. That path should be clear and open. And if Islamic laws do not fulfill this, then they need to be revisited. Again, not all of them, many of them, some of them, that's a discussion that legal scholars have gone through. Because Islamic law, again, must fulfill the benefit, the public benefit of the people. You have the famous, you have eminent domain now, for example, in terms of the protection of wealth on the fourth objective. Eminent domain is what? Anybody knows what eminent domain? We voted on this like in California a few months ago or a year ago. Can the government just force you to sell your house to build a Walmart? No. I think they can in California now. I think we passed it. It was on the ballot, I believe. We'll double check that afterwards. But it's scary if they can do that. Islamic law spoke about these issues, 1,400 years ago, when there was a discussion between two of the companions and said, this stream of water comes through my land and goes to yours, and honestly, I don't want it to go to you anymore. So I'm going to keep it with me. So he blocked it. And that stream is public property, even though if it goes into your land. So the Prophet said, you have to open up that stream again. At the time of Omar, this eminent domain came again, and they wanted to build something, and this state, it's very, very limited in terms of the scope of this eminent domain. There is no eminent domain to build a private corporation, for example. These rules and regulations are flexible because they need to fulfill the objective of the objective clearly. So anything of that sort will need to be assessed. Just like we assess here, and we put a panel of specialists to assess this need, whether it is really a public need or not. In Islamic law, they do the exact same thing. So that's where, when I said Islamic law to a large extent is not divine in its is not divine in the technical aspect of it, but divine in the spirit, in the overarching principles, is because these things change. The public benefit change. The purpose of a state, the purpose of a law, is to make people's lives easier. And that's, I think with that, I will open for questions and answers on my part. But I hope that you guys can ask some questions so we can engage and make things clearer if any of them is not that clear. Thank you.
With your reference to multiple interpretations of Sharia in different passages in the Quran. And so my question is, who speaks for Islam? Do you speak for Islam as an authority and representative of the religion of Muhammad? And if not, can we get a proper scholar to speak on behalf of the religion? And what do we do with the conflicting scholars that have different interpretations? Why is one received above the other? And why can't my interpretation of the verse or part of the Sharia be accepted as authoritative? And with that, the reason for that is because you mentioned the verses of peace unto you your religion, and to us our religion. And according to Muslim scholars such as Al-Halali and Mushikan and Ibn Kathir, Al-Tabari, the concept of abrogation states that the last things Muhammad said abrogate or cancel out earlier things he said if there's a conflict. And the surah of the sword, the ayah of the sword, according to Ibn Kathir, cancels out the verses you referenced. And if you are indeed a scholar, are you not misleading the people in the concept of abrogation that, according to Muslim scholars, would lead them to hell if they misinterpret the Quran by using verses that have been canceled? Thank you.
Great, thank you. You want me to answer each one? Okay. Who speaks for Islam? That's a very common and important question, to be honest. At least I can speak on behalf of the Sunni sect. Nobody speaks on behalf of Islam. We have a direct relationship to God. There are scholars that, just like you, does anybody speak on behalf of the field of medicine today? Does anybody speak if you need to take an operation in your heart? Is there one single person that can decide on that? So it's more of a profession in the sense, it's more of a legal profession. Is there a single legal expert that is the number one and only one that has the right to interpret the American Constitution? No. There are multiple angles and multiple perspectives because it is not a, again, I repeat, it's not a, practically it's not a divine text. It's not a divine law, I mean. The text, the spirit, and the objectives contained in the text of the Quran and the practices of the Prophet are divine. However, the way that it mixes with people's experiences makes the end result as not being a technically divine text that is that if you follow, you go to heaven, or if you don't follow, you go to hell. And that's why the references that you made to some of those scholars, there are others that have disagreed with them. Equally competent, equally authoritative, if you want to use that word, that said, well, no, the latter verse does not abrogate and cancel out the previous verses, because otherwise half of the Quran would be useless today in that sense.